So today we are going to review how to compare and order fractions, decimals, and percents. We did this at the beginning of the year when we did our number unit. So this is going to be a really quick review. If there are some things that you don't remember, you can go back to the very first thing that we did and look through those notes. So the first thing that we're going to do is write down our algorithm. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to decide if you want to work with decimals, percents, or fractions. I usually choose decimals. That's just the easiest for me to work with. A lot of people choose percents. So either one of those kind of are the most popular ones to use. Hardly anybody ever chooses to work with fractions. If you decide to work with fractions, you need to have everything with a common denominator. Then after you decide which one you're going to work with, decimals, percents, or fractions, then the second step of the algorithm is you need to write all the numbers you're putting in order or comparing as either decimals or percents, and then I wrote or fractions, which I don't think anybody is going to choose. So let's look at our first example. Our first example is which is greater, 3/20ths or 16%. I'm going to do decimals only because that's the easiest for me to work with. If you want to do percents, I'll show you real fast how to do that. But my first step is I've decided that I'm going to do decimals. So then I need to divide 3 by 20, 3 by 20. And I'm going to do that on my calculator. And when I do that, I get 0.15. Then 16% is the same thing as 0.16. So 15, well, I guess I'm looking for what is greater. 16% is greater than 3/20ths. So there's how Miss Bernowski would write it. A mathematician would write it as 16% is greater than 3/20ths. If you want to do percentages, the 16% is already in a percent. So when you did 3 divided by 20 on your calculator, then you could go ahead and multiply that by 100, and that would be 15%. So either way, it does not matter. Converting in this particular problem to percents might have saved you an extra step. Alright, my next example says which is greater, 79% or 0.08. Some of you might not even need to do the conversions, but I'm going to go ahead and do that just so you can see it. So 79% is the same thing as 0.79, and 0.08 is the same thing as 0.08. So it's pretty easy to compare. 79% is greater than 0.08. And if you wanted to write in words for Miss Bernowski, 79% is greater than 0.08. You do not need to write both of these down. This is fine for what we're doing. I'm just making a point that sometimes words work. So either one is fine. This is the math way, and then this is just the writing way. You have a couple of on your own problems. Go ahead and work those, pause the video, and you can get a calculator if you don't have one to do that, or you could even do it as multiply by 4 to get to 100 at the denominator. So there's a couple ways to do that. I'm going to use a calculator, but go ahead and pause the video and work those and then come back and check. Alright, I have gone ahead and done my conversions. Like I've told you, I like to work with decimals. So 25% is the same thing as 0.25. 7/25ths, when I did that on a calculator, that comes out to be 0.28. So 0.28 is greater than 25%, and I really should write it the way that it was given to me. So 7/25ths is greater than 25%. This one right here is true, but that's not how the problem was presented to me. So I really should write it how it was presented to me. Alright, so for number 2, I've gone ahead and done the conversions. 0.49 is the same thing as 0.49, and then 94% is the same thing as 0.94. Remember, one of the suggestions we learned at the beginning of the year was to write them in columns, and then I can compare this column. They're both zeros, so that does not help me. Then I can compare this column. 9 is bigger than 4. So 94% is greater than 0.49. And again, this is one of those that you may not have to go through all of those steps. You might be able to just look at it, but I wanted you to hear the thought process that goes on. Alright, we have another example. Example 2 is a real-life application. It says, you, your sister, and a friend each take the same number of shots at a soccer goal. You make 72% of your shots, your sister makes 19 out of 25 of her shots, and your friend makes 0.67. Who made the fewest shots? One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to underline fewest because that's a little bit different than what we're used to looking for. And then I've gone ahead and written me, my sister, and my friend. So I make 72%, and I like working with decimals, so that's the same thing as 0.72. If you like working with percentages, then you don't need to convert that. Then my sister makes 19 out of 25, and then when I do that on a calculator, that comes out to be 0.76. And then my friend makes 0.67. That's already a decimal, so 0.67. I look at the columns. They're all zeros, so that doesn't help me. And then I look at this column. 0.67 is the lowest number, so my friend makes the fewest shots. And she made 0.67 of those. So there's my answer. Another way that you could do this is you could make a number line. So if I did a number line, it would be 0.66, 0.68. So I'm going to like that. This is just more of a visual, so for those of you who like a picture, this might be more helpful, but I'm going to change colors so it's a little bit easier to see. So 0.67 would be here, then 0.72, this is me, and then 0.76, this is my sis, and then my friend is here. So there's a visual for you on a number line. If that helps, then you can use a number line, and then you can see that 0.67 is the least amount, so that's who makes the fewest amount of shots. So the last problem is an on your own. You make 75% of your shots, your sister makes 13 out of 20, and your friend makes 0.7. Who makes the most shots? So that's a little bit different, so make sure you pay attention to that. Go ahead and pause the video, and then you can come back and check it. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done me, my sis, and my friend. I make 75% of my shots, which is 0.75. My sister makes 13 out of 20. And when I work that out on a calculator, that comes out to be 0.65. And then my friend makes 0.7, which is the same thing as 0.7. And then remember, we go ahead and fill that in with a 0 to hold the place value. So that's something else that we learned at the beginning of the year. Then I look at this column. That's not very helpful. So I look at this column, and I'm looking for the most shots. So my sister has the least amount, so that rules her out. And then I can look at the last column. I have a 5 and my friend has a 0, so I make the most shots. So my answer is 75%, which is me. I make the most shots. This is a very quick review from what we did at the beginning of the year. If you don't remember it or this quick review doesn't help you, please come see me in the morning and we will work through some more of these so you can understand it.